Hey guys, how you doing today? Out and about. Thought I'd do a video. Oh geez, I don't even know what's banging around my head today. It's one of these sorts of days where I'm kind of just going through it. I think the big news that I've been seeing and the stir as it is at the moment is Doug Ford's usage of ministerial zoning orders, right, in order to push through large-scale projects in the province. It's been called all kinds of things. It's been called reckless. It's been called irresponsible. All of that is true, of course, because what it is the Doug Ford administration falling back on its typical propaganda lies that conservatives use, right? Oh, this will create jobs. Oh, we need to build housing, even though we have like 3 times the amount of housing that we need. It's just all bought and owned by millionaires and billionaires who refuse to rent it at reasonable prices, right? So this whole grift that gets put onto us of how, oh, we have to build more housing because we only have 3 times the amount of housing we need, and that'll help lower prices, when in reality what'll happen is these housing projects will get bought up by billionaires and millionaires and they'll jack the price the way that they do, right? That's how the system is operating. And so the purpose of all of this, the purpose of Doug Ford pushing through these ministerial zoning orders with the expediency, like why the expediency, why the speed on all of this? Well, it's really very simple, right? You sell contracts to your buddies, right? Maybe you're even one of these places. Maybe you even have an owner, some shares in some of these companies, right? That you've gone ahead and you've given a contract to someone where it literally just benefits you, indirectly or directly. And they need to be pushed through as quickly as possible so that the projects can be pretty far along by the time Doug Ford gets voted out of office, right? Conservatives typically only last a term, and there's a reason for it. Conservatives only really last a term because the people who voted them in the first place didn't listen to anyone when we said, oh hey, conservatives will lie to you and they will just steal all of your resources, right? Like that's how conservatives operate. That's how Mike Harris operated, and that's how Doug Ford is operating. And for some reason, conservatives don't like to listen to people. They need to actually have it proven, right? They need to actually have it shown to them once again that, oh hey, when you elect a conservative, they lie to you, they steal your resources, and they make sure that the society is worse off for their existence. But they can't just steal the resources and then leave, right? They need to erect a system so that they can continue stealing the resources as often as possible. So take Mike Harris, right? Mike Harris is a great example. So Mike Harris is the reason, well, and the Wynne administration and the McGuinty administration, because they didn't do anything about it. But Mike Harris truly is the reason why these long-term care homes are in the position that they're in, right? Why they're these decrepit, bug-filled shitholes, right? And Mike Harris privatizes these places, and then he makes himself one of the shareholders, right? So he's making money off of the misery of the elderly, and nobody seems to care or do anything about it. And so Doug Ford takes a look at that and he goes, oh yeah, that's great. That's exactly the system I want. I want to be making money off of the misery of the elderly as well. I want to make sure that my own constituents and my own voters get jammed into these total shitholes that are filled with bugs, where they get fed crappy food that wouldn't get served on an airline. So that's what he's going to do. And that's the whole point of this. That's the whole point of these ministerial zoning orders, so that Doug Ford can continue just siphoning as much money as he possibly can from the public sector, from the populace, until he dies, which I hope is soon. If you're one of these people who dips out at about the 5-minute mark, thanks for coming. Thanks for clicking on the link. Thanks for listening. Please be sure to like, share, and subscribe to the video. I really appreciate it. We need to be supporting leftist voices. I'm a leftist voice. I'm the Canadian commie. Hi, thanks for clicking. Yeah, thanks for coming along for the journey. Have a good day. So, and part of the issue, of course, with grifters like Doug Ford is that they benefit pretty strongly from having a weak left, right? That the weak in this country is extremely, that the left rather in this country is extremely weak. The media is completely bought by neoliberal right-wing forces who have dragged the populace so far to the right that any policy that comes forward to actually benefit the populace makes that person a socialist. Whereas even 20 years ago, like take Justin Trudeau's passage of the CERB during the pandemic, right? An emergency order that gets put through, and he gets called a socialist for it. 20 years ago, like, conservatives would have been pushing for that measure, right? Conservatives would have been arguing for that measure. But we've gone so far to the right, and like way off the spectrum to the right, that we are not really capable of holding in our mind what it is to even have a left-wing party, right? That somebody puts forward a very reasonable centrist idea and it gets attacked as being socialist. Doug Ford has called the people who are to his left, which is literally everybody because he's essentially a far right, ruddering up against fascist organizations. And so anybody to the left of him is a socialist. This turns our politics and this turns our media into just a freak show, right? It's just a complete lampoon, ridiculous nonsense show. You can't have reasonable discussion. You can't have rational discourse. You can't actually talk reasonably with people who are willing to elect lunatics and people who are grifters who are actively attempting to steal from them, right? Like, this is the great tragedy of the Doug Ford and the Mike Harris administrations, is that the true victims of these administrations are going to be the very people who voted for them, right? Like, typically older people vote conservative, right? If you're 60, 70, you have a much higher chance of voting conservative. And so guess what? You're the one that's going to end up jammed in these long-term care homes, right? And when you get jammed into these long-term care homes and you see that they're bug-infested shitholes where you're abandoned most of the time, where you sit around in your own filth, you only have yourself to blame because you're the one that voted for it, right? Meanwhile, your kids and the younger generation that's sitting here saying, like, hey, this is what's going to happen. Hey, this is what's going to happen. Like, you're going to turn around and somehow blame them. I'm sure of it, right? You're going to turn around and you're going to say to the very people who were actually warning you the entire time that there are consequences for voting for liars and grifters. You're going to turn around and blame them for the state that you're in. Oh, the socialists, those are the guys that are the reason why I'm living in this shithole right now. And how do we actually have a rational discourse? How do we actually have a reasonable discourse? And this, to me, is why the left is so weak here in Canada. That the left is not willing to stand up and call these grifters what they are. They're not willing to stand up and say that people like Doug Ford are obviously con men who are liars and attempting to steal from us. They're not willing to say that privatization is a large-scale financialization hoax that is designed to systematically and structurally indebt the society to a group of billionaires who are outright sociopaths actively attempting to careen us towards our own destruction. Leftists are not willing to say these things, right? Because it's uncouth or impolite, right? And we're not willing to actually stand up and call a shovel and say that, hey, these policies are having enormous detrimental long-term impacts on what's going on. And moreover than that, we are not willing to call the thieves and grifters who are actively attempting to destroy our society thieves and grifters, right? Doug Ford should be referred to as a thief and a grifter. This should be common parlance, right? Imagine voting in a guy like this who actively assaults our teachers, who actively assaults our students, who actively assaults our workers, who actively assaults our libraries, who actively assaults our medical community in the middle of a pandemic, right? Imagine voting in someone like this who is willing to sacrifice the well-being and the lives of everyone around them so that the owners of Walmart can make a couple extra $1 million, right? Like, how would you refer to such a person? What would you call such a person? If you knew this person, if there was a person in your life who is actively attempting to make your life worse, who is actively attempting to make your life harder, while you did all the work and they did nothing, you wouldn't keep that person around. You wouldn't keep that person around for very long, and you wouldn't have a nice thing to say about them. And yet, for some reason, we're all supposed to be all buddy-buddy and treat Doug Ford, who cozies up with far-right evangelical fundamentalist Christians and pastors, who cozies up with far-right fascist groups, who cozies himself up with the corporate sector to ensure the continued destruction of our own communities. Yeah, we're supposed to speak nicely about this guy. Nonsense to that. Like, what this province needs and what this country needs is a strong, militant, left-wing, organized group. We need people who are actively going to call Doug Ford what he is, which is a grifter, a liar, and a thief. A drug dealer who organizes himself and organizes his administration like the mafia, right? That's what he's done. And what Doug Ford's primary skill is, if you ask me, is putting on the puppy dog eyes, is pretending like he actually cares or is a victim when somebody tries to put the gears to him, like Andrea Horvath does, right, in the House. You can go see Doug Ford cry. You can go see Doug Ford complain and cry when Andrea Horvath stands up and actually points out that he's a grifter and a liar and a thief, right? And he's very good at it. He's very good at this face. He puts on this face, and we're all just supposed to go, oh, Dougie. You know, oh, he's just trying, you know, Dougie, right? Former drug dealer who beats his wife. You know, oh yeah, he's just trying. And so this is what's happening with these MZOs. He's trying to push through as fast as possible projects for his buddies so that he can take money and put it into their hands, into their coffers, so that when he's out of power, they'll turn around and he'll suddenly be sitting on the board of all of these places. Oh wow, look, funny how that works, eh? Exact same way it happened with Mike Harris. That Mike Harris gives a whole bunch of projects to his buddies, and then when Mike Harris is out of power, oh look, Mike Harris is sitting on the board of all of those projects. Funny how that works. And yet we, the populace, continue voting for these obvious, overt grifters and liars, right? We, the populace, are so gullible and so easy to deceive that we just keep voting for these guys. That's a very concerning thing. It's very concerning that we just seem to continue to go along with this. And once we get into a position where it's actually going to cost us very dearly, we'll all be scratching our heads wondering how we got here, while still voting for these grifters. Okay, this is the end of this video, guys. If you've made it to this point, I think you have to subscribe. Those are the rules. Please like, share, subscribe. Please send this stuff around. We need support for leftists, and more importantly, you need support, right? You need to know that these guys actively gaslight you. They spend billions of dollars propagandizing you in order to convince you that the rational, reasonable thoughts in your head are unreasonable and to keep you isolated. Don't let them, okay? You're doing well. You're doing great. Good luck. We're gonna need it.